Okay, so this year we've had Dumbo, which sucked, and then we had Aladdin, which I liked. Now we got The Lion King. Let's see which category this falls into. Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson, and this is my review for the 2019 remake of The Lion King, which was directed by Jon Favreau, who did, previously for Disney, The Jungle Book. And this movie is pretty much, it's The Lion King. It's about the young cub Simba, who is born to King Mufasa, and is destined to become new king of Pride Land. But there's his uncle Scar, who wants to take the throne for himself. And if you've seen the original animated movie, then you've seen this movie already. And when I say this is a remake, this is a shot-for-shot remake of that original animated movie you saw 25 years ago. That's the thing I've feared most about with this movie, because the trailers made it look like a shot-for-shot remake, and that was what I was sold on when the trailers kept coming out. And when people saw the movie before I did and saying how great it is, I thought, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Jon Favreau managed to pull it off and make it a worthy remake. And then I saw the movie and like, no, this is exactly what I imagined it would be. It's so shameless at how much of a shot-for-shot remake this is. It's Gus Van Sant's Psycho all over again. For those of you who don't know, Gus Van Sant in 97 or 98, he remade Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho with Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates. That was a terrible choice. But anyway, it was a shot-for-shot remake. The only difference was that it was in color. And this movie, it's just a shot-for-shot remake of The Lion King, except it's CGI and has a photorealistic look to it. And because of that, there are no surprises. Scenes play exactly how they play out in the animated movie. I mean, the opening sequence with Circle of Life, I first thought, okay, maybe they're not doing it shot for shot. And then it played out. I'm like, wow, it is so, like, it's shame. I already said this before, but it's shameless how Circle of Life is a shot for shot remake of the opening Circle of Life sequence in the animated movie, right down to the point where I don't even think they re-recorded a new version of the song. I think they just reused the same song from the animated movie, and I was baffled. I was incredibly baffled at how this got through. There are a lot of other issues with this movie that just make it so uninspired. For one, the songs. Yes, they're all the same songs from the original Lion King movie, but because all the songs are being sung and performed by a bunch of photorealistic animals, it's just lazy. 3 hours before I went and saw this movie, they released a clip of Donald Glover as Simba singing Hakuna Matata with Timon and Pumbaa, and it just lacked so much energy. It was like watching a nature documentary with Hakuna Matata awkwardly crammed into it. And when you watch all the song sequences in the original Lion King, the art style changes. They take full advantage of the animation and make the scenes as exaggerated as possible because it's a cartoon, and you get a lot of personality from the characters. This one, not so much, and the only one that really works is Can You Feel the Love Tonight? And that's only because the characters aren't actually singing them physically. The song is being performed within Simba and Nala's minds. Now let's talk about the animals first of all, because this is the same technology used for Jungle Book. I mean, hell, it's Jon Favreau. And I will say this about the movie. Yes, it looks absolutely gorgeous. There are so many points in this movie where I watch it and go, wait, that can't be real, can it? Because it just looks so good. And it's amazing how many small details they get with these animals. Like, there's some instances where an animal's ear will just randomly twitch, and they give so much attention to detail with this world, and it looks amazing. And they've even got a great cast. With James Earl Jones as Mufasa, I originally thought bringing him back was downright lazy. But really, when you think about it, he still brings a level of gravitas to that character. I mean, he's got the voice for it, and really, nobody could replace James Earl Jones. He is Mufasa in the very same way he is Darth Vader. I thought Chiwetel Ejiofor was threatening as Scar at points. He's got that menacing voice down, and I felt him to be more of a threat than the live-action Jafar in Aladdin. And a lot of people are calling Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen as the big highlights of the film. And yeah, they're really entertaining, especially Seth Rogen as Pumbaa, who... man, talk about perfect casting right there. But for me, the big show stealer was actually John Oliver as Zazu. I don't know why, but there's something about John Oliver's voice and the way this bird looks that is just a match made in heaven. Every time John Oliver says something with that bird just acting as realistic as possible, it made me laugh. As for Donald Glover as Simba and Beyoncé Knowles as Nala, they were okay, but I felt like they were the weakest actors in the movie. And it goes back to the problem of this being a shot-for-shot remake. It just feels like Donald Glover and Beyoncé are going through the motions in terms of their line reading. I don't get any sense of passion whenever they deliver their lines. I could argue the same thing for James Earl Jones, because before seeing this movie, I rewatched the original, and in that original movie, he sounds very natural, he sounds like a real father, and in this movie, it just feels like he's giving monologues and speeches that belong in a trailer. I mean, they were used in the trailer, but the reason to give James Earl Jones a pass is because he's got that voice, and that voice just helps in any situation. But getting back to Donald Glover, another reason why I just wasn't too into his performance, and it's not his fault, but it has to deal with the fact that these animals don't really show a lot of emotion. I understand that this movie's trying to be as photorealistic as possible, like these are real animals, but they're still talking animals and singing animals when you get right down to it. I recently rewatched The Jungle Book, and I noticed that with all the animal characters like Baloo, Bagheera, Shere Khan, they get a lot of expressions through their eyes. You can tell what these characters are thinking just by watching their eye movements. And that's the key with any CGI character that is animalistic, like Caesar from the Planet of the Apes movies. Both CGI interpretations of Kong, Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, King Ghidorah from the Monsterverse, and even Blue from Jurassic World. I'll throw her in as well. When making his version of King Kong, Peter Jackson said that one of the most important features of Kong are his eyes. And that's something that I feel like doesn't get across with this version of The Lion King. You just look at those eyes and there's not a lot of expressions going on in there, to where I can't buy into these characters. I can't really care for them. And those are a lot of the movie's downfalls. Despite all that can be said about this movie that's good, like the voice cast, like the look of the film, this is just one of the most pointless and soulless remakes I've seen ever. And after I saw the movie, I tweeted out saying that this is really just a copy and paste of the original Lion King. Somebody replied saying, well, that was the point. No. The point of a remake is not to just rehash the same story beat for beat. The best remakes out there take that same story and update it for newer audiences. People who might not be very familiar with the original movie. That's what makes John Carpenter's The Thing work so well, because it followed the same ideas, but did a lot of new creative things. That's what makes Peter Jackson's King Kong work so well. It follows the exact same story right down to being set in the 1930s, but the relationship between Andero and Kong are different. There are many more action scenes in the movie, especially the scene where Kong fights 3 V-Rexes at the same time instead of just 1 T-Rex. And that's what makes The Jungle Book and Aladdin work for me. The Jungle Book took elements from the original Disney movie that were lighthearted, but also drew from the original book and made it a darker movie, to the point where if you're familiar with the animated movie, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's what worked for Aladdin. With both Aladdin and Lion King, I rewatched the animated movies before seeing the live-action versions. And with Aladdin, it follows the same story beats, but they at least make an attempt to do some different things, and they develop character relationships further. Now, it's not always good, but at least it tries to make it its own movie that's not dependent on the animated version. This one really does depend on the animated version. And I would want to say watch at your own risk, because it's The Lion King, it's a huge phenomenon, it holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts, and admittedly, I did feel some emotional beats in this movie, but then I realized These are the exact same emotional beats I got when watching the animated movie, and the only thing that's different from this and the original is that this is just CGI. So I cannot in good conscience recommend this movie. Just don't waste your money on it. It really is a shot-for-shot remake. You're better off just staying at home and rewatching the animated movie that you love so much, because you're not going to get anything new from this version. This version of The Lion King is just a longer CGI version that has no soul and just really has no purpose in existing outside of the money. And in that regard, I want to apologize to Beauty and the Beast, because that movie was a copy and paste version as well, but at least it had a few moments that make it somewhat different. Granted, they created plot holes, but at least they tried. This doesn't try. It plays it safe from beginning to end, and it's a major disappointment. And there you go, that's my review for the 2019 version of The Lion King. And now I want to know what you guys think about the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Where does the original Lion King rank for you in terms of Disney animation? And are you curious about this new version? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the Real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.